Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. My name is Stacey DeCalma and I'm the manager for sector capacity here at QCOS. We're just waiting for a few more people to join us. We've got quite a bit of content to get through today, but I would love to encourage you to be as interactive as you would like. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. We'll keep an eye on that. And very soon I will introduce you to some of the others we've got on the line who are going to be able to contribute to this discussion and answer questions that you might have about the Human Services Quality Framework. All right. Now, before I get into the content of the session itself, I would like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander custodians in Queensland. For me, specifically today, I'm on the land of the Yagara and Turrbal people. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. And QCOS would like to thank First Nations people for the gift of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. We as an organisation really look forward to supporting the work leading to a successful referendum to enshrine a First Nations voice to Parliament in the Australian Constitution, followed by Makarrata and, really importantly, treaty. And we welcome the invitation to walk with First Nations people in a movement of the Australian people for a better future for all of us. I'd encourage you to acknowledge the land that you're on in the chat. Now, as I said, my name is Stacey. I manage sector capacity here at QCOS. We provide a wide range of sector capacity activities as a peak body for community services in Queensland. And providing support around the Human Services Quality Framework is one of the things that we do here at QCOS. On the line today, we're really lucky to be joined by two of my sector colleagues who don't work at QCOS but provide a lot of support also around HSQF. I'm going to let both of them introduce themselves now. So Michelle, would you like to go first? We've got Michelle Fatur here.
Sure. Hi everyone. My name's Michelle Fatur and I'm the manager of the Human Services Quality Framework team. I'm based in the Department of Seniors, Disability Services and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Partnerships. And our team basically administers the HSQF for the 5 departments whose funded services are in scope of HSQF. So I'd just like to welcome you and thank Stacey for initiating this webinar. And just, I guess I'd like to, because I'm the face of HSQF today, encourage you to know that we are here to answer your questions and that you can contact us. I'm sure Stacey will show our website and everything. We've got a 1-800 number or an email address. So if you've got any questions at all along the way that you want to put to our team, we're very happy to take those questions at any time.
Very much, Michelle. Clarisa.
Thank you, Stacey. And I am also on Yagara and Turrbal land. And I would also like to acknowledge Aboriginal elders, past, present and emerging. So my name is Clarisa Rahmat. I am from a business called The Quality Nerd, which is my own business. I am also a HSQF auditor. I've been involved with HSQF almost from the very beginning. I originally worked with the Department of Communities in developing the scheme and writing all the resources and things like that. And then from there, I went back to work in the sector. So I actually used the standards in practice, working as a quality manager in a large community services organisation. And over the past 5 or 6 years, I've also been a HSQF auditor.
Thanks very much, Clarisa and Michelle. And I'm sure we will be calling on your expertise throughout the session. So please, this is a great opportunity for everyone on the line to ask as many questions as you like. And we'll provide an overview of the HSQF and some of the other little facets to it, different quality pathways, certifying bodies and auditors, and what resources are available to support your organisation, because there is actually plenty of out there, resource and support out there. Sometimes the trick is just navigating all that support that might be available to your organisation. So we're going to cover everything that's on the screen now. That's what we're intending to cover in the session today, and hopefully with time to get to your questions too. So what is the Human Services Quality Framework? We call it the HSQF, and it's a quality assurance framework for assessing the quality of service delivery of human services in Queensland. Now, this quality framework spans across several Queensland government departments. It didn't begin that way. Michelle might be able to give some more information about that soon, how this framework has kind of evolved over time. So if you're unsure whether or not it applies to your organisation, you can check your service agreement, and it will say in there whether or not this is something you need to be complying with. Now, the HSQF was developed by the Queensland Government in collaboration with non-government sector to provide consistency and in service quality, ensure public confidence in government-funded service delivery, and maintain safety for people who use services in Queensland. And the HSQF really offers benefit to people using services, including their families and carers, to organisations delivering services, and to the Queensland Government. So in our view, it's really something that has mutual benefit across all the people who are interacting with this quality framework. I have popped two links in the chat, and as Michelle has already alluded to, their departmental website is really the best place to go to first for information regarding the HSQF. If you're really starting at the beginning today, and this is something that's quite new to you, do recommend having a look at their website, because there's so much information available. Michelle, did you want to say something else here about the
Well, I wrote a couple of points to say. I guess the primary aim of the HSQF system is to make sure that the non-government services, not sure if I'm getting an echo there.
I think there may be someone not on mute, so I'm going to just...
That's fine. To make sure that the non-government services that Queensland Government funds are high quality and safe for our most vulnerable Queenslanders. So that's the primary aim of HSQF. And that even though those services are being delivered by a range of different non-government organisations, that there is some consistency for consumers who are accessing those services. So there's consistency across the different organisations in the way that the services are delivered. I guess that the HSQF, once you get into it, you will see that it has a very strong focus on the prevention of abuse and neglect of consumers, and that really came from the history of the past abuses and neglect that has occurred to people that have used services that have, has been highlighted in royal commissions and inquiries that you would be aware of in the past. So that's really where the standards have come from that history. So they do have a very strong focus on that. I guess the other thing I wanted to say is that HSQF is designed to support organisations to meet the standards. So it is set up as a transparent process where there's lots of information and also support to help organisations to actually meet the standards. So the intention is not to catch you out. It is actually to help you move towards meeting the standards. And finally, the HSQF or any structured quality system, once it's implemented in your organisation, it does reduce risks for your organisation, because hopefully the way that you're operating is sound and high quality, and therefore you're reducing risks. Things like accidents or abuse or mistakes, where consumers might then raise these with your boards and things like that. So you're actually reducing those type of risks in your organisation.
Yeah, great points. Thanks, Michelle.
That's okay. Thank you, Stacey.
Okay, so we're going to start right at the beginning of the standards that make up the Human Services Quality Framework. So if you've opened up the HSQF document, and again, you can find that on the website, the link that I've shared in the chat, you will find that there are 6 quality standards. They are governance and management, service access, responding to individual need, safety, wellbeing and rights, feedback, complaints and appeals, and human resources. And they all cover really the core elements of service delivery. Now, when you open up your user guide, and they do look slightly different, the user guide for certification or self-assessment, and we'll talk about the difference between those two in a minute. Each standard has several indicators, and for each indicator, there might be common requirements which apply to all organisations. And in addition, there might be specific requirements related to the funding you receive. So most of you are going to be looking at the indicators, these points that we're seeing here next to the common yellow flag. They're the ones that all of you are looking at. And then in addition, some of you are going to be looking at these other coloured flags depending on what funding you receive. So under the information about the indicators are suggestions of how you might demonstrate compliance with the indicator. And it's really important to note that you do not have to demonstrate everything that's suggested. And you might have other valid and appropriate ways of demonstrating compliance with the indicators that apply to your service. So here we have on the screen an example using indicator 3.2. Now the indicator says the organisation formulates service delivery that respects and values the individual. Example, identity, gender, sexuality, culture, age, and religious beliefs. Now, the yellow flag it indicates common requirements. All of you will need to pay attention to those yellow common evidence requirements. And then depending on your specific funding, you may need to focus on additional requirements as indicated by those coloured flags. So underneath the purple box on the second page, so the screenshot on the right, there is a list of suggested ways to demonstrate compliance with this indicator. For example, one of them there listed is that you have policies and procedures relating to service delivery that reflects consideration of individual needs, rights and preferences of service users. So that list there, all those bullet points under that purple heading are all the suggested ways that you might be able to demonstrate that your service is compliant with that indicator. Now, for organisations who are completing a self-assessment, the user guide does look slightly different. However, it utilises the same format. It lists the common evidence requirements and the service-specific evidence requirements with a list of suggested evidence below. Now, at the end of this webinar, we are going to send you a post-event email with lots of different hyperlinks in it and all the links needed to get to the resources that we have mentioned today during the webinar. Questions about that before I move on? Okay. We're going to talk about quality pathways now because there's a few ways that organisations can comply with HSQF. Now, services who are in scope of the HSQF must demonstrate their performance against the standards in one of three ways. We're going to talk mostly about two ways today. The ways are self-assessment, certification, or evidence of accreditation under another approved quality system. Now, you'll be able to find out which demonstration method is required of your organisation by checking your service agreement. Now, why is there a variety of demonstration methods? As you can see, there's a couple of different ways that organisations might be asked to comply with the HSQF. And the reasoning behind that is there's a few different reasons. One is the type and complexity of the services that you provide, the vulnerability of the people who use your services, the level of Queensland Government investment in service delivery. And we see here there's the funding thresholds that might determine whether or not you are requested to either be certified or do a self-assessment, and other specific departmental requirements. So there are, you will possibly have a unique kind of, I guess, calculation of whether or not you're asked to be certified or otherwise. Michelle, did you want to say anything more about that specifically? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, Michelle. Michelle, you're on mute. Sorry, I caught you off guard.
You did. Probably the best thing to do if you're unsure is to talk to your contract officer or contract officers in Queensland Government, and they can always check with our team what your method is.
Yeah.
And your method can change depending on your funding, things like that.
Yeah, one of the key messages we'll have throughout this webinar is to ask. Always ask if there's any doubt.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about self-assessment. Here on the screen, you can see a screenshot of what the user guide for self-assessment looks like. And I am going to just put that in the chat right now so that you all have, for those of you who are complying with HSQF and required to do a self-assessment, this is the user guide that you're going to be working with. This is your key document. This is what's going to be really important to be familiar with. Now, organisations required to demonstrate compliance with the HSQF through self-assessment have up to 18 months to do so once you receive your funding. Now, refer to your service agreement to confirm your commencement date, and then you can create a plan. From 0 to 6 months, you're going to be undertaking initial planning and preparation. So the things that you're going to be doing during this phase include talking to staff and customers or clients about the self-assessment, including the purpose of the assessment, the process, and how the results will be used, and identifying roles and activities and who needs to do what. In that period of 9 to 12 months, you're familiarising your board and management committee or your staff and volunteers with the HSQF standards and identifying how they're going to apply to your organisation. And you're identifying resources to use in completing the self-assessment. Your activities are going to include things like reviewing the self-assessment workbook and the HSQF user guide, which I've linked in the chat, collecting and reviewing feedback from your customers and clients about their experience using your services, and developing a schedule to complete the self-assessment that includes timeframes, activities, and who is responsible for doing what. From 12 to 15 months, your activities will include collecting documents, so policies and procedures and records that are relevant to each standard, and assessing the evidence against the standards. This process is going to help you identify your organisation's strengths and areas for improvement. And you're going to be developing a continuous improvement plan. And this should be a living document that you refer to regularly to guide and implement your improvements. At the 18-month mark, you'll be submitting your completed self-assessment workbook and your continuous improvement plan to your contract officer. And from 30 months, which is 12 months after your self-assessment, I know 30 months seems like a bizarre kind of marker, but that's 12 months after your self-assessment plan self-assessment has been completed and submitted, you will need to submit an updated continuous improvement plan to your regional contract officer. And this will show your progress of implementing identified improvements and what you've done to maintain the services that you have that meet the standards. So it's really a check-in point 12 months after you've initially completed that workbook. Now, when you're completing your self-assessment workbook, you'll be noting opportunities for improvement, and these will be captured in your continuous improvement plan. And your continuous improvement plan must be submitted with all your progress and updates, like I've said, 12 months later. And then 18 months after that, your next self-assessment is due. So it's this self-assessment and continuous improvement cycle. It really isn't just one activity and then everyone collapses in a heap, although that might happen once you've completed and then that's it. And you don't need to think about it again for another 18 months or whatever cycle you're working to. It really is about building this continuous cycle of improvement. And as Michelle has already said, it's not about a test and trying to catch anyone out not doing the right thing. It's really about cultivating a culture within your organisation of always looking for ways to improve your service delivery. Now, this is what the workbook looks like. This is one of your key documents if you're doing self-assessment. It requires you to consider each indicator and what practices and processes you currently have to evidence that you meet that indicator. So you're kind of acting like your own auditor in this process. You're having a look at each indicator here. You're having a think about those suggested demonstration, the suggestions under each indicator where you might be able to evidence that you're meeting that indicator, and you're listing down what those are, and you're giving yourself a self-rating. Have we met that? Have we partially met it? What are the opportunities? What do we need to put in our continuous improvement plan? It's really important to consider all common and service stream mandatory requirements, which are covered in the HSQF user guide for self-assessable organisations. And depending on your funding again, don't forget there might be specific indicators you need to have evidence for. And this is what your continuous improvement plan looks like. It's not complicated, but it is a way for you to record all the things that your organisation wants to be working on, and so you don't forget about it. There's a date, there's someone responsible to action it, there's a required date, what the outcome was, whether or not that issue has been closed, and when you want to review that again. All right, now we're moving on to HSQF certification. And for some organisations, this is quite a large undertaking, but there's heaps of information and resources to help you on this journey. So this is the second demonstration method for HSQF, and there's quite a few key documents that, again, we will send to you in the post-event email, but I will put the user guide for certification in the chat, because I think that is a really important one for you to, if you've got multiple screens, you might be able to have it open while we're chatting about this. All right, there it is in the chat. Now, HSQF certification can only be granted when an organisation has been assessed by an independent third party. And this is an example of what Clarisa does. It's known as the bodies who are able to appoint an auditor are known as certification bodies, and they've been deemed, and they are able to deem you as meeting HSQF standards. When an organisation is HSQF certified, it means they are meeting the standards and have a plan for continuous improvement to ensure they are always working on enhancing service delivery. Engaging a third party to audit your organisation for HSQF certification does require some planning. So your organisation is going to need to engage a certifying body that is a good fit for you. You need to be available for the time frame that's needed. So this is really important. When is your certification due, and when can that certification body fit you in? And we'll talk about starting early and planning ahead quite soon. We do recommend engaging a certifying body well before your audit is due, and this might mean speaking with a few to gain quotes and get a feel for how well they will engage with your organisation. We will talk more about certifying bodies and auditors in a little bit. Now, HSQF certification, you're working to a 3-year cycle here. Now, for this first 6 months within the cycle, this is, again, the undertaking initial planning and preparation. So the things you're going to be doing in this part of the cycle include setting the scene. So leadership endorsement and building engagement with those who are going to be involved. You're setting the scope, you're understanding the quality requirements and allocating resources. Planning for action, so preparing for change and developing quality action plans, and a customer, client and stakeholder engagement piece as well. So really setting out all the things that might need to be done and what that actually looks like for your organisation. Now, from 6 to 9 months, this is a period where you would be conducting a self-assessment to check your organisation's compliance with the standards and identifying gaps to make improvements. Now, a HSQF audit is quite a significant investment financially for an organisation. Investment financially, but also as far as the time it will take from your team. And so you want to head into an audit really well prepared. And when I say that, I don't mean that you have to have everything absolutely perfect, but that undertaking a self-assessment of sorts is going to really assist you to use your time wisely in the lead up to your audit, so that you're not really, your auditor doesn't come in when you're feeling really underprepared for it. So conducting that self-assessment really helps with preparation for your own organisation. In this phase, you're becoming familiar with the HSQF user guide. You're again thinking about what resources need to go where. You're scheduling timeframes and activities to develop a plan to complete the self-assessment. And this is when you should be contacting certifying bodies and making sure you've made arrangements with one. And we'll talk about which ones are available for you to work with too soon. Now, in 9 to 12 months, this is where you're continuing to plan and you're really preparing for that audit. You're working with your certification body on audit planning and your organisation's readiness for the audit. And this is when your certification body will complete a stage 1 audit, which is also called a desktop audit. It involves reviewing documentation to assess whether or not your organisation is ready for an on-site, also known as stage 2 audit. Now, from 12 to 15 months, that's when your stage 2 audit is happening. That's when the auditor is visiting your organisation on site, and you'll do a lot of liaising with your certifying body around that. In this phase, you're doing things like obtaining consents from your customers and clients who will be participating in the audit process, gathering documentation for review by the auditor, including staff and client files, organisational records, policies, procedures, and registers. So remember, you're looking at all those suggestions of evidence in the HSQF user guide and thinking about, okay, when the auditor is looking at this particular indicator, what are we going to be able to show them? And you're liaising with your certification body to confirm the audit schedule, including the sites to be visited if you do have multiple sites, and any other requirements, you know, on what day they're going to need to speak to a board member, or what day they're going to be wanting to speak to some clients or service users. There's quite a few different people involved in the audit process, and having a schedule so that everyone knows where they need to be when they need to be available. Okay. Now, if there are any non-conformities identified during this stage 2 audit, the auditors will provide your organisation with a set time frame for identifying the cause of those issues and developing and implementing corrective actions. And the auditor will then assess the effectiveness of those corrective actions. So this is why we have the stage 2 or on-site audit before the certification is actually due. This is giving your organisation some buffer time to complete any kind of corrective actions that need to happen before your certification is actually due. Because you can imagine if you have your on-site audit, you know, 2 weeks before your certification is actually due, and there are a couple of things identified that you really need to work on as an organisation, you're going to be in a bit of a pickle because you're not going to have time to do that before your certification is actually due. Now, again, this is what your continuous improvement plan looks like. This is where you're recording the ongoing effort of your organisation to improve your process and your service delivery. Again, it's not a complex document. It really is a living document designed quite simply for you to keep track of all those improvements that your organisation needs to make and wants to make. Now, engaging a certifying body, this is really important. Some people get a bit confused in this part and aren't sure where to go. Here listed on the screen are the certifying bodies that you are able to engage in this process. And the continuous improvement plan is a great segue into this conversation and talking about what to expect from auditors and the audit report, which I know Clarisa will be able to speak about. Now, there are 6 certification bodies accredited that you are able to engage. And auditors work for certification bodies to complete audits. So you're engaging a certifying body and they will allocate an auditor. And you might like to ask sector colleagues, and especially those working in similar service types, what their experiences have been with different certifying bodies. You really are, I guess, shopping around for the certification body that's going to suit your organisation best. And we suggest that there's a few things that we suggest you do when you're engaging a certifying body. Request a fee structure and obtain comparative quotes from a number of certification bodies. They can vary greatly. And ask the certification body about their experience auditing human services and their depth of knowledge of particular service types, their availability to undertake the audit in a suitable timeframe. That's really important. Auditors are a rare and precious workforce. So they're not always going to be available at really short notice. And so you need to be upfront right at the beginning about your timeframes when your certification is due and whether or not that certifying body is going to have an auditor available to meet that timeframe. Talk to them about the structure and content of their audit reports. That's really important. Your audit report, and we'll talk about this more in a second, that's a product that you get from the audit experience, and that's a product you pay for. So it's really important that that report adds value to your organisation and that you're able to use it for the purpose that it's intended. So asking them about their audit reports is really important. What's their complaints process and their privacy and confidentiality policies? And what is their ongoing obligations to the organisations that they certify? You will find that some certifying bodies have particular resources available or different things that they provide to the organisations who use them as a certifying body. So there's lots of questions to ask. And I always do recommend chat to your sector colleagues. Who's used an auditor recently? What was their experience? Anything to be aware of, or particular questions to ask? Okay. I'm going to move into auditors and audit reports featuring our online HSQF auditor, Clarisa, who is a HSQF auditor and has worked in the sector, so has a lot of wisdom to share because she's been on all sides.
I have, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Stacey. Hello, everyone. So if you're coming into HSQF, I think one of the things that people fear a lot when they come into the system is, what's an audit going to be like? And am I going to get a scary auditor and someone that's going to tell me off or be horrible to us? And I think that's really valid because I've sat on both sides of the table, and I know that when I sit in the service provider side, when I have been audited myself, I get super nervous. And I've been audited while I've been an auditor, and I still get super nervous because you want that to be a good relationship. So what does a good relationship look like? First of all, it should be very honest, open, and transparent. And transparency really is the key here because there is nothing secret about the HSQF. So every document that Stacey is sending you, everything that is available for HSQF resources, that is what your auditor has access to as well. And they don't have access to anything else. So there's no special or secret auditor resource guide for the HSQF. We all have access to the same stuff. So transparency is really important because if an auditor is saying to you, oh, you need to be doing this, they should be able to evidence where they have got that information from, and you should be able to look at it together. I would also say that, if there are challenges during an audit, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're not sure about a non-conformity that the auditor has raised, you need to be able to speak up and feel empowered to ask questions, get feedback, and really, even to have a break, I would say, to even to be able to say to your auditor, look, I don't think we're on the right page here. Can we have a little break and just go over, what you've been looking at, and I might be able to provide you with more evidence or talk things through. So I really think that that is the cornerstone of a good relationship with your auditor, is just being able to speak with them openly and honestly. As Stacey mentioned, it can be difficult to get your auditor of choice sometimes because we are difficult to book. We get booked out in advance. But when you engage your certification body, they will be able to give you auditor biographies, and you should be able to select from that and work out with them if you can get the auditor that is most suitable to your organisation. So, for example, I have experience with cultural diversity. I've worked in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations. I might be more suitable to certain types of organisations more than others. Other auditors have a lot of experience with domestic violence or in certain service streams. So those are the things that I would be looking out for. And that also helps you to build a bit of rapport with your auditor as well. What should the audit report contain? So every audit report is required to have certain components, and that's required by the HSQF scheme. So you'll always find an executive summary, which will go over basically how the audit went, a really highline version of how the audit went. And that will include some positive observations and hopefully some of the feedback that we've gotten from your clients. And it will have any of the non-conformities that were raised and any opportunities for improvement as well. If you're a multi-stream organisation, it will hopefully go into how each service stream went. The other thing that is most important to organisations within the audit report is a summary of findings. And it will basically look like a table, and it will have the indicator, what the requirement of the indicator is, what the non-conformity or opportunity for improvement is, And that will help you to complete your corrective action plan or to put something into your continuous improvement plan. It may also give you some details of, this is what needs to be addressed to fix a non-conformity. And then you'll have a body of the report, which is kind of a summary under each of the indicators, so 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and that will align with the mandatory requirements that are in the HSQF user guide. So that body of the report will really address each of those mandatory requirements, and it might go into some other detail as well. Every auditor I know loves to write about the good things that are happening in organisations and about the feedback that we get from your clients. So it will go into those kinds of details there. Nothing that is raised within the body of the report that is, say, an issue or something that the auditor wants to bring to your attention, that will also be transferred to that summary of findings table or to your executive summary. So you don't really need to worry so much about having to read, comb through the entire report, because some of them can get quite big to find out, if you've got a non-conformity or if there's an issue that's been raised. You'll be able to see that at the front of your audit report, and the rest of it is really just, more for, I suppose they're very good for quality managers and management to go through to get a more in-depth understanding of how you're going as an organisation. So that's really how you would use your audit report. It's most useful for, as I said, quality managers and managers to go through and to find out, what areas you're doing really well at, and also what areas are there for improvement. If you get non-conformities or major non-conformities, I like to say to people that just think of them as opportunities for improvement that have a time frame, right? That's really what they are. It's just a gap in your system that needs to be addressed in a certain amount of time. So a major non-conformity, you'll have up to 3 months to resolve those, or a non-conformity, and you'll have 18 months to resolve that. Now that's up to 18 months. So depending on the type of non-conformity, you might need to address it a bit faster. So, for example, if there is a non-conformance with a piece of legislation, that could be a major non-conformity, and your auditor might say, look, you actually need to get onto that straight away. So that might be if a key member of staff doesn't have a blue card and things like that. So I've heard people use their audit reports in their company's annual reports, in client newsletters. I really do encourage you to let your clients know how your organisation has done in its audit, and also to let your staff know, so you can put snippets into staff bulletins and things like that. Now, if you're not happy with any aspect of your audit or your audit report, as I said before, you can talk to your auditor about it at the time during the audit. And if you're not happy with your audit report, talk to your certification body. So probably by the time you go through your stage 2 audit, you'll have had a lot of contact with your certification body, and they will have a complaints process in place to be able to raise any issues with them. You've also got the option of going to JASANS, who is the body that accredits all of the certification bodies, the 6 certification bodies that Stacey showed you before. And a complaint can go to them. And you can also speak to the HSQF team, I think. Is that right? Yep, Michelle's nodding. Yes, and you can also speak to the HSQF team as well. And I really do encourage you to speak up if you're not happy with things. I think most auditors have been quality management professionals in some way or another, so we do really love feedback. And generally at the end of the audit, an auditor will leave you with, details of how you can provide feedback. So we don't get, as an auditor, I don't get any, feedback from organisations before I put an audit report in. So there's no retribution. It's the same principles as your own complaint systems have probably, where, nothing bad will happen to you if you raise a complaint or you're not happy with any aspect of your audit. We would love the feedback, and anything that you say is only going to help us improve. So
Clarisa.
Yes.
Just, I think on our certification page on our website, there is steps there also, which basically reflect what you said, but there are some steps about if you're not happy with certain things, who to speak to and what sequence to do that in.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Michelle.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Clarisa. Really good to hear from you. And there might be some. We'll have a look at the chat at the end to see if we've got any questions about auditors and audit reports. But love your work. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
So we've gone through the different ways you might demonstrate compliance with the HSQF. And we've talked about the departmental website and other ways you might gain some support and information around the HSQF, either self-assessment or audit. And there are some other supports that I'd like to share with you. So QCOS provides quite a few different HSQF-focused supports. One of the really important things to note about this support is that we have individualised organisational support, which means you can contact QCOS and you'll probably speak to me if you contact QCOS for organisational support. And I'm able to chat to you about the things that you might be struggling with. It might be a really quick conversation where you're just looking for a piece of information, or you're looking for a particular policy, example or template, or a contact for a specific purpose. Or our conversations might go on for weeks. We might have regular check-ins because the thing that you're grappling with in your organisation needs some significant support around it. So what I want you to take from that is that you can approach us with the support that you need, and we'll give that to you. So whenever we can, we'll provide as much support as we can to your organisation, depending on what it is that you're finding a challenge at the time. Now, other ways that we can support you is you can engage with the Quality Collaboration Network, and I will talk a little bit more about that network in a minute. And we have other resources that you can just access and consume as you like. So we have Community Door with lots of different resources on it. Some of you might be familiar with Community Door because it's a place that holds a lot of information across the community services sector. We also have HSQF aligned policy templates on the QCOS website. We have HSQF focused videos where we interview organisations about HSQF. We also have a e-training course that focuses on HSQF, which is really ideal for anyone who is quite new to HSQF. So let me tell you about these things in a little bit more detail. So the Quality Collaboration Network, and wow, this is a bright one. This is because we want you not to forget about the QCN. The Quality Collaboration Network is a peer-led network for those involved in implementing the Human Services Quality Framework in their organisation. This is a really valuable network because it brings together lots of different people from across the sector doing similar roles, but in different size organisations doing different kinds of service delivery. So it's where you can come and feel safe to share your experiences in quality and compliance. And if you have expertise in this area, to share with others who would really like to benefit from your knowledge and your experience in the sector. We have lots of great conversations in the QCN. We meet once a month. Usually on the third Wednesday of every month. We have just had our last meeting for the year, so unfortunately we're not coming together again until February, but you can register for the QCN via the QCOS events page. It is important to note the target group for the QCN because it's such a great network, we do often have a lot of people registering for our monthly meetings, and it doesn't have quite a distinct purpose, and it is for the sector. It is for them to come together to identify common issues, to discuss particular things that are going on. And we usually have a focus topic for the month where we talk about something that's quite relevant to all of us. So some of the topics that we spoke about this year were clinical governance frameworks. We talked about what you need to know if you're combining audits. So if you are complying with multiple quality frameworks, what it looks like to combine audits. We talked about trends in HSQF audits and what auditors were seeing on the ground. And some of the things we're going to be talking about in 2023, because we just had a planning meeting where we looked at what kind of topics we're going to look at for next year for our meetings. Cybersecurity was really high on that list. We talked about accessibility and policy documents, so how we can ensure that our policies are accessible, and how to speak to board or management committees about quality and compliance. So that's just a few of the things that we cover in that network. And we'll have the meetings for next year up on the QCOS events page fairly soon so that you're able to register for those meetings if you're interested in it. And as I said, it's really, the value is in the name, collaboration. It truly is a collaborative network where all who come together in that space really do support one another. And when one organisation needs some assistance with something, other members quite often will jump in quickly to provide a sample template or a copy of their policy or help them find the right information. So it's a really great one to be part of, particularly if you are in a role, a quality or compliance role in your own organisation. It might not actually be a quality and compliance role. If you have quality and compliance responsibilities in your organisation, and you might be doing lots of other work, your core role, and quality and compliance is this thing that is kind of on the side of your desk that you have to keep a track of, come along to the QCN and benefit from the expertise of others who are doing similar things in the sector. Oops. Okay. Community door. I've spoken about this. It's a receptacle for lots of different information. This is a screenshot of the Community Door website. If you Google Community Door, you'll find it quite easily, and we will send a link in the post-event email. There's an array of presentations, videos, templates, tools, resources for quality, but across multiple content areas as well. Within the quality assurance resources section, there's links to the Blue Card Services portal, information on CRMs, case management, etc., etc. Lots of stuff on there. You could spend a long time getting lost in Community Door. And here's a screenshot of where you'll find the HSQF e-learning module. So if you're in Community Door, you'll see some tabs up the front of that, up the top of that website, and you'll be able to find the tab to find our e-training or e-learning modules. Now, this one is great for those who are really new to HSQF and want to start right at the beginning. And this course gives an overview of the HSQF. It talks about quality management. It talks about implementing a quality system, gaining customer and stakeholder feedback, what the auditing process looks like, and maintaining quality and continuous improvement. So that's a great resource for someone who wants quite a comprehensive overview. Now, this is probably the most utilised HSQF resource that we have, and they have been this year updated to align with version 8 of the HSQF user guide. These are the policy and procedure templates. We have had really good feedback from the organisations about using these templates. And actually, Clarisa was one of the people involved in the first rendition of these policy templates. They're really easy to use. We've made sure that it's really clear how to use the policy templates. If you go to the website, you will see that they are organised into standard areas, so they're quite easy to find the one that you're looking for. And it has the highlighted areas where you're meant to take out information and put in your own information. And at the top of this website, when you go to this page, you will actually be able to also see a policy guide on how to actually fill out the templates and generally what things should be included in your policy. So a general guide there. There's also relevant supporting documents. You can see them, they're listed on the right-hand side. So documents that are not necessarily policy templates, but things that are going to help with those procedures. And just recently this year, we added a 7th folder, as you can see, which is governance templates. So that was something that the sector had been asking for, and a bit of a gap that was in our policy templates, but there are some governance specific templates there now too. Okay, so our top tips for maintaining a pleasant HSQF journey. Start early and create a plan, regardless of your demonstration method. Please don't get caught out thinking that, oh, because we're doing a self-assessment, we don't need much of a plan and it's quite easy just to get done. Have a look at your commencement date, or have a look at what date your either self-assessment workbook or your certification is due, and work back and make a plan for when you need to have everything done by. It's really important that you involve those who need to be involved, so it's not a surprise for anyone. We talk about this when we talk about writing grants and things like that, is everyone who needs to be involved isn't aware of it, you more often than not, you will get caught out with things like that person's gone on annual leave. You didn't realize they were going to Thailand for a month, and now you really need some information that they have and they're gone. Or they've got some really intense project delivery to do in that period of time. So they actually need to contribute their part of the puzzle earlier so that they don't get off track with their other work. So really important to start early and create a plan of when everything needs to happen. As we've mentioned several times today, auditors are sometimes hard to lock in. So please don't get caught out not contacting a certifying body early enough and booking that in. The second tip I would say is to view this as a positive process. And I know this can be tricky because the reality is a lot of you are doing, particularly if you have another role and you're not just working in quality and compliance, and this isn't your sole focus, you are doing really hard frontline work as an organisation. And sometimes the paperwork side of things can feel heavy. It feels like it's not the important work. Your frontline work is the important work. So it is understandable that sometimes these processes can feel like they're difficult, they're challenging, right? Particularly if your role isn't able to be just dedicated to this particular work. And so viewing this as positively as you can is a great way to frame either your self-assessment or your audit. So while they're stressful at the time for some people, quality processes such as the self-assessment and audits are a great way to keep an organisation continually striving to be the best that they can be. And as Michelle has said, it actually creates great safety for your individual workers and your organisation. So I think the stress of completing the self-assessment or audit you can help offset that with the stability and the safety of knowing that you have got really robust processes in place for the safety of everyone involved in your service delivery. Now, the principles underpinning the HSQF include respecting human rights, social inclusion, participation and choice. And HSQF assists organisations to bring those principles to life through the work that they do and gives structure and guidance to the elements of service delivery that achieve those principles. So ultimately, this is a good thing for all of us to be involved in, because I don't think any of us don't want to achieve those principles through our work. There's something that all organisations are striving to deliver. The third tip is to utilise the resources available. We've gone through quite a few today. There's lots available to support you and your organisation. Start with the departmental website that we've linked, and then contact QCOS for further support if you need some more support. It's free support. There's a variety of ways we can help you. And as I said, it's not just all static resources. It's not just going to our website, reading through everything that's there. Please just give us a call or send an email if you want to chat, and we can provide you with some individualized support. And don't underestimate the value of speaking to your colleagues in the sector too, because they're really likely to have recently completed either a self-assessment or an audit, and they're probably preparing for one alongside you. So have a chat to others about how they're going with it. It's certainly not an isolated experience. There are others who will be doing probably a very similar process to you at the same time or around about the same time. Again, engaging a certifying body early, we're just reiterating this point because we don't want you to get caught out with it. The process costs money, so make sure you obtain a really clear fee structure and quotes. Ask them about all those different facets of the audit that we spoke about earlier. And remember, organisations are an equal partner in the certification process, so you should have a really good relationship with your certifying body where both parties are committed to quality service delivery. Everyone involved in this process wants your organisation to be successful. So everyone is going to do what they can to make sure you have a positive outcome at the end of an audit. And lastly, ask questions and please seek support. There is ample support available to organisations. Sometimes, as I have said, it can be hard to navigate all of the support available. So pick up the phone, give Michelle's team a call, give me a call, chat to your certifying body, and one of us will be able to help you out. That's all I've got, which is good because we've only got 5 minutes left. So I'm hoping if any of you have some questions, we might be able to answer them now. I'm going to go to the chat now and see what we've got. Okay. Great. Okay, so Wendy has asked a question. Let me drag this over here. So Wendy has said, at what stage or milestone do we go back to once Michelle is live answering the question as I'm reading it out. Okay, so for anyone who's not in the chat, Wendy had asked, at what stage or milestone do we go back to once we have lodged our updated continuous improvement plan or self-assessment at 30 months? And Michelle has said, Wendy, you will then need to do another self-assessment 18 months after the continuous improvement plan. You start the cycle again. Good question. Was there any others? Perhaps we provided such a comprehensive overview that we've answered everything. I'm sure as you go through the process, you will come across questions that you have. So as we've said, please get in touch at any time. We're happy to help. Now we're going to, before we close off, and I'd like to thank both Michelle and Clarisa for their contribution to this discussion. It's been really great to have both of you on board, and I'm already thinking we should do this again next year.
Thank you for having me, Stacey.
Not a problem.
Thanks,
at all.
everyone.
Thank you. We've got a poll up on the screen. Please let us know whether or not this session was useful for you. And hopefully you've all learnt something new today. There's a poll on the screen, and that really helps us to make sure that the activities and resources that we deliver to you are useful and relevant. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and keep a lookout for that post-event email. It will have all of the links in it and a link to the recording today. Thanks very much, everyone.
All right, thanks, Stacey.
Thank you. Thanks, Sid.